So how do you learn a dead language efficiently? What if you cannot talk to people because there are no more people who speak it? Learning languages is one of the most interesting things you can do in life, at least for me. When you learn a language, you learn a new way of thinking, and you of course learn to communicate with other people. But what happens when you're learning a language that's no longer spoken, a dead language? How do you learn classical Chinese efficiently? Because it is a dead language and people don't speak it anymore. As I've explained in this video before, it's not really dead, because many aspects of it are still alive and well in everyday life in China today. But that doesn't change the fact that you cannot go out and talk to people in classical Chinese. So what do? Are there any strategies to help you? And I think the strategy is pretty much the same as with other languages. Basically, you need to have exposure to it. So you need to keep practicing. With classical Chinese, you cannot go out and talk to people, but that doesn't mean that you cannot spend time with it. So basically, the best strategy, for me at least, is to spend more time with it. So you keep reading every day a little bit. The best, of course, is to join a class or even teach a class, and that forces you to keep working on it on a regular basis. Even though this is a no-brainer, it's really the most effective way of getting ahead. The more you practice, the better you become. Having said that, there are also some other things you might want to consider. One of them is that in classes and textbooks, students are taught famous passages from famous people, say Confucius or somebody else. And that's very helpful because you need to learn these passages so you become familiar with these bits of information everybody knows. It's a shared heritage. But if we think about it from a strictly language learning perspective, then maybe these are not the best things to read. Because quite often, the sayings of Confucius, for example, are in a very archaic language which are difficult to understand. So when we learn them, we don't always learn about grammar or particular grammatical points, but learn how to interpret something which is kind of ambiguous, something over which people disagreed for 2,000 years. So even though if we commit to one interpretation, it's very clear that it's not 100% certainty because there have been so many other people who've disagreed with this interpretation. So I think it's actually very useful to read something that is not ambiguous, something that is straightforward. So I like narratives, for example, where we have a story and the story develops, and then in most cases, it's not very ambiguous. Or another possible thing to read is translations. So even translations from Western languages, from English or French, are quite interesting because they've been done by educated Chinese scholars in the late 19th or early 20th century, and they really have the opportunity to show you how the language works without this usual cultural setting around it. So in a sense, you have the opportunity to focus on the language itself. Because if you read a Western novel in classical Chinese, yes, it's not going to be mainly about Chinese culture or the cultural background, but it's going to give you an advantage that you understand the text perfectly. And so you can do it without a teacher. And you may even notice passages which are different from the original, and noticing these contributes to you learning the language. So combine this method of reading something that is not ambiguous, perhaps even a translation, with the commitment that you do it every day or every other day. And then I think you can move ahead relatively quickly. So it's not really a secret sauce to anything. It's just thinking through your options in a logical manner. All right, let me know what your experience has been with learning classical Chinese. Perhaps you have another method that works for you. Please write in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching and see you next time.